Today's conversation is sponsored by the Billy Keels Advisory Program. If you want to learn more about how to make your 9 to 5 optional, just go to billykeels.com/advising. Once again, that's billykeels.com/advising.
You're listening to the Going Long podcast, the #1 podcast for the strategies, tactics, and actions high wage earners need for living an intentionally designed life of wealth and resilience.
Welcome to the Going Long podcast. We're back once again to continue to help to educate you so you feel much more comfortable as well as confident in building the wealthy and resilient life that you're looking to lead and do that much faster. I'm your host, Billy Keels, and I'm looking forward to and am welcoming you back to another fantastic episode. Once again, I want to start by saying thank you so much to everyone who continues to download the episodes. You continue to share them across social media, share them with your family, with your friends, tagging us on social media channels like LinkedIn, like Instagram. It means the world to us, really, really does, because it helps to keep the podcast in the top 1.5% of podcasts globally, which is amazing. And also, too, if you want to leave your honest written review as well as rating, and we take them all. So let us know what you like, what you want us to do more of, improve on. There's a nice little short brief video here in the show notes. So just check that out. And then also too, if you want to check out any of the over 410 episodes at this point in time, just feel free to go to billykeels.com/podcast. Once again, that's billykeels.com/podcast. And so one of the things I want to chat about today, or one of the things I'm going to share with you today is once again, it's the result of a lot of conversations that I'm having. These are conversations that I'm having with people that a lot of times I'm meeting on LinkedIn, and we're chatting from there, and they want to look and find out more about the advisory services that we have, and these common themes that continue to come up, which is pretty interesting, not amazing, very interesting, because these are a lot of the exact same things that I've actually lived through. So I know that I'm not alone, because apparently it's happening to many, many people, and a lot of the problems that happen, especially when you're in that corporate life and you're looking to build your own business, or maybe you're doing it on the side now and you're just feeling a little bit stuck, or you're feeling like you don't know exactly where you're going, or maybe which things you should be investing in, which types of assets. And also too, you're trying to get unstuck. You're really trying to figure out exactly what you want to do. Like, these are the conversations that are coming up. And which is why one of the things that I want to share with you now is it's one of the, I know for me, it was one of the scariest conversations that I felt that I didn't want to do it initially, but I felt like I needed to do it for my sake, for the sake of just my internal integrity, and also for the company that I was working for. This one conversation was I believe it's the one that you must have in order to truly be free in corporate, right? It's the single scariest conversation that anyone will have. I know for me, it was a very, very scary conversation that I had, that I know that I needed in order to be free from corporate as well. A lot of times when you're in corporate, I mean, this is what was going on with me, right? I was performing as a top performer, right? I was in the equivalent of the top talent program. And as I continued to do that, was also interested in, although the accolades were there, the benefits were there from the corporate, I wanted to have control over my own freedom. And so as I started building this business on the side, I got to a certain point where I was literally burning the candle at both ends. And so that leads to some mental and physical exhaustion. It just does. And I'm a person that needs very, very little sleep. But when you are investing your time to be able to be present with your family, when you are being present at your employer, and you're building a business on the side that you want to become something larger that will impact more people's lives, it's normal that you get to, it's part of the process that you're going to get to this point of tiredness, exhaustion. Anyone that says that they don't, well, you probably want to run the other way, because they've not actually been through it yet. And so having already been through that, and that's what I said, coming back to us, it got to a certain point where my desire for having this side hustle and building is, initially, I wanted to make a 4-figure net income per month. And I wanted to do that in 5 years. And it did not take that long, because once I got focused and I started taking consistent action, things started happening much faster. So that my initial goal of being able to go out and make more money, well, that was great for a while. But then the reality is, I was screaming to be able to have the control over my time so that I can invest it with the family members that I wanted to invest it with. I wanted to be able to invest more time with some of my closest friends and family. And so that's what I was really, really looking for. And the thing is when you're burning the candle at both ends, like I was, and you probably are, because that's why you're like wanting to know what this scary conversation is. And I'm going to tell you here in just a second, but there's only so many hours in a day. And like I was running into a wall because I was like, I can't just keep working more hours because I'm not getting ahead. And so I started to recognize that there were other people that were in the same situation that I was. I started changing a little bit of my circles. I wasn't just hanging out with people from the office. I started learning about these people that were investors and what they were doing and what they were investing in, and a lot of the different benefits that were coming for them. And my business was starting to take off. So I was not as focused 100% on my day job as I previously had been. And I know that I did an episode on that, just talking about what was going on. And well, if I can think about it, I'll remind you and I'll tell you what episode that is. Um, but if you ever get in a point, I'm sorry, that's episode 420. That's the one you can go check out, episode 420. But let me not get distracted. So I come back and I got to this point where it was like, oh my gosh, I'm just burning the candle at both ends. I need to be able to do something differently. And I can't keep hiding from what I know is waiting for me. And that is to be able to work with and impact and serve more people. I was being very quiet about it in my day job, and things were moving in such a way that I just needed to be able to understand, how can I start to focus more on the results, more on the outcomes, versus worrying myself about the number of hours that I was working. And so it got to a certain point, and I was definitely scared. Like I close my eyes and I think about it when it was happening. Like I had this knot in my stomach, and my armpits were sweating, and I know that my nose sweats all the time anyway. But I know that my nose was like sweating, and it was one of these things where it was like I had to have the scariest conversation that I've ever had, because I had to talk to my boss about kind of cheating on my corporate role. And it was the fact that I had a side hustle, like I had a side thing, I had a side gig. And so that was starting to take more of my time, more of my attention, more of my energy specifically. It was the energy that it was taking, because I was loving it. It was giving me energy, but I know, so because it was getting started, I was giving it a lot of energy too. But I had to talk to my boss. I had to come clean. I had to share what was going on, not really because I felt like I needed to share, but it was because I had these weird feelings going on inside, and I needed to let my boss know that I had a successful business going, and I had been performing at a really high level for years. Because it wasn't like I just got it started and it was like 2 weeks in and I told my boss, no, 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 no. That wasn't it at all. This was over a number of years. I'd been doing this for probably no, 3 to 5 years before I even let my boss know. Why? Because I wanted my track record to speak for itself at the office. I was overachieving every year. I, done over 240% of my target as a sales and sales leader in the past. And so it was the right moment for me. Like, you have to understand when is the right moment. And maybe your dynamic with your direct line boss is different. And these are things like you want to talk about. Like, look me up. Feel free to do that, because every situation is different. Understanding the context before you have this really scary conversation is super important. It's really important. Having the track record to be able to demonstrate that you've already been doing this side hustle for a number of years and you were still performing in your day job, absolutely critical. Right. And so once I finally had that super scary conversation and it explained to my boss what was happening, and also that I had a successful track record because I'd been doing it for a number of years, the conversation was really more about my boss and what my boss wanted and what my boss needed. I was informing my boss of what was going on, but I also wanted him to know, like, I'm thinking about you. I'm talking to you about this because I've been performing my track, the corporate role. I've been performing. You didn't even know the difference. And the idea is now I really want to double down and find out what are the most important things for you as my boss. I'm informing you what I've been doing outside on my own time, on my own dime. And I want to know what you really need me to continue to do more of, or even have more success. Because this was also the moment where I kind of understood that the promotion path, I wasn't going down the traditional corporate path anymore. And I wanted to make sure that my boss got everything that he needed. Because my boss was a guy. So it was like what he needed, so that I was never an issue on his radar. And then it also allowed me to focus my time and my energy so that I can continue to give more results, more outcomes. And so I started to break my day up into three. And I talked about this before, where I had a whole moment that was for me, for getting the business going. before I started time with my family and then in the 9 to 5 during the day. So it was like I was able to organize myself. The pre portion of the morning, then I had my family and the 9 to 5. And then in the evening, it was time to be able to really wrap up anything that had happened outside once the kids were in bed and all that kind of stuff. And so the idea was, not only was I informing my boss, it was a really scary conversation, like I said, but once we had the conversation and I informed him of the track record that I have, and also that I was really focused on making sure that I continue to achieve or overachieve against the targets that he specifically needed, then it made life much, much better. Now, it was wobbly at first, right? But it wasn't perfect. And I was making sure, because I was hyperly nervous, and that I overperformed against the things. Once I told him, like, there is some nerves that happens there. So in the beginning, it was a little bit wobbly. But the most important thing was, as time went on, I continued to perform and I continued to overperform. And I was building my business on the side. So I was gaining more confidence. I had a higher impact conversations with my boss also too, because it was like, how are you continuing to perform at this really high level, and you're also building this other thing on the side? So it changed some of the conversations, elevated a number of the conversations that I had with my boss and started having with coworkers. And also too, it helped me to be laser focused on providing outcomes versus hours. Right? It wasn't about how do I work more hours. It was, how do I get the outcomes so that I know that I am providing my boss in the day job what he needed or what your boss needs. And then you're able to also focus on the things that bring you joy, bring you energy, by being able to do that. And also was able to even accelerate the number of assets that were coming into my portfolio as a result of doing this. Because I broke through and had that one scary conversation, it opened up a whole new world of success inside of corporate, and also focusing on the outcomes, the results that my boss needed, that the company needed, so that I could also expand my personal portfolio, begin to create the assets that were going to eventually give me more control over the time that I wanted to invest with family and friends. So, like I said, it's a scary conversation. It comes up a lot, but it's the one conversation that you really need to prepare yourself for, especially when you want to have that freedom from corporate that a lot of people talk about. So, hopefully this has been helpful and just giving you some insight in some of the different types of conversations that are happening. It's giving you some actionable content as well that you can go out and put into play. You can share it with your family, with your friends. And if you know somebody who's actually struggling with this right now, they're not sure how to have this conversation with their boss, well, we'll make it really easy for you to get in touch. We've got links here in the show notes. You can reach out to me directly, billykeels.com / advising. And so take today's conversation or today's episode, share it, download it. And while you're doing that, I'll be here preparing for the next episode. So until then, go out and make it a great day. And thank you very much. Freedom! Today's conversation was sponsored by the Billy Keels Advisory Program. If you're looking to make your 9 to 5 optional and need some help, just go to billykeels.com / advising. Once again, that's billykeels.com / advising.